So welcome back, everybody, and welcome here to our final It's a Wrap closing ceremony for the event. So the idea for this session is to give all of you the opportunity to have your final say, and we've also got some of our speakers and other stakeholders lined up who've been part of the event to have their final conclusions and give their thoughts from the event. We want this to be a little bit more informal, shall we say, than the rest of the event. So hopefully you've all poured yourself a drink and made yourself comfortable. And as I said, now we're going to talk through some of the outcomes and takeaways and chat through some conclusions from the sessions that we've heard. Now, it's become a bit of a tradition at this conference over the last few years for the closing ceremony to be hosted by BNE, Broadcast Networks Europe. And we're delighted that in this virtual environment this year, BNE have continued their support and are once again hosting this reception. And whilst it's a little bit more difficult than normal for them to provide the drinks and canapes for all of us in this virtual environment, we have sent out drinks to all of our speakers and panelists on their behalf. If you've spoken at the event, and I hope you've received this okay, and now is the time to get that open. And you can see just next to me here the schedule for today, or for this session. We're going to be starting with the conclusions that I mentioned. We're then going to be announcing the winner of the iPad, the prize draw that we have running. So we're going to be announcing that. And then finally, we're going to be asking all of you for your thoughts and comments via the chat room. So please do start with that now. Any conclusions you have, any takeaways you have, please do add them into the chat, and we can start having a discussion going alongside us there as well. But I'd like to kick things off by introducing to the stage Jean-Pierre Faison. Jean-Pierre is from BNE, and as I said, will be a familiar face to a lot of you. He spoke obviously earlier in the week, but also as a representative from BNE, he very often, or normally for the last however many years it's been, I think it's been at least 5 or 6 years, if not more, Jean-Pierre has joined.
I think it's the 8th, yes.
8th year, thank you. Well, 8th year. So for the 8th year, Jean-Pierre has joined us and opened our closing reception, or the networking reception as it is. So Jean-Pierre, it's fantastic to have you back with us here. And first of all, I'd like to say a big thank you on behalf of all of our speakers and panelists for the drinks that they've received from you. So thank you for that. And I'd like to now pass to you and invite you to say a few words to formally open our reception. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Dan, and welcome. Good afternoon or good morning to everyone, and welcome to this closing reception on behalf of BNE, Broadcast Networks Europe. We are the Association for Broadcast Networks Operators. That means that we operate transmission facilities for terrestrial broadcasting and on behalf of our customers, which are the TV or radio channels. First of all, as Dan said, we've been hosting this closing reception for many years, and we decided that we would not let the COVID virus prevent us from doing that. So my first word would be a word of thank you to Forum Europe, and especially Dan and his team, because they've been extremely creative in giving us ideas so that we could maintain this tradition, of course, in a different setting, of course. But they actually invented the virtual real drink. So not everyone has got the real one, but everyone is welcome to join us for this virtual party and grab a beer or soda or water, whatever you want, or Prosecco if you want to join. And in any case, thanks really for the organization of this event, including this social part. This is very special because we're here together and we're not here together. And at that stage, I'd love to have a special word for someone who will not be there anymore. And I'd like to make a tribute to somebody who I think most of us know in this small community of the spectrum management, Alan Marsh, who passed away 1 month ago. He was a very strong defender of the spectrum for PMSC. He was a great engineer. It was also a great ally for us, especially in the wider spectrum group. But more than that, he was a great human being, I think, and I think you all of us appreciate him. And if you want to know more, I think there's this picture and the website that his wife has put in tribute of him, alanmarsh.uk, which is very, very moving. I'm sure he would have appreciated this virtual celebration. He would not have wanted us to be sad. And also, he was a musician and a guitar player. So I think he would have appreciated the other surprise that the Forum Europe's team has concocted, that is some music in the end. And we were very happy to have this also as a testimony to the creative industry. So as a conclusion, I think those both the continuation of this event in a social setting and also this more personal tribute, I think shows, I think, the human value of what we are doing. And it's personally, I'm happy, and I hope that it will last for a long time, that spectrum management is managed by human beings and not by artificial intelligence. And I think it wouldn't work in any case. So we are really happy to hear the conclusions from the thought leaders and think on that. And let's all enjoy this closing session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jean-Pierre, for those words. Thank you, really appreciate it. And just to start off, I would like to echo the sentiments that you've mentioned very well about Alan Marsh. And I think all of us at Forum Europe were very sad to hear about the news about Alan passing away. He was, as you said, Jean-Pierre, a familiar figure at this event and a real character as well. The website that Jean-Pierre has mentioned, again, that's alanmarsh.uk. So that's been set up by his family, and they're asking people to post memories, anecdotes, and photos of Alan onto that. And we will be sending out details in the post-event email, just with that link there for anyone who did want to visit that or post your memories or tributes to Alan. So thank you. But Jean-Pierre, thank you so much once again, and we really do appreciate you guys again being back with us again to host the reception. So I suppose I have my drink here. I think you have yours. So normally we do it in the normal way, but cheers and thank you, and appreciate that. So thank you so much. So next, I would like to bring to the stage Richard Marsden, who is going to be moderating this the conclusion session first of all. So Richard, if I can find you here, there we are. Hi, Richard. Welcome. So hello there. Hi. So I think we have around about 20 or 25 minutes now, and I think we have 5 or 6 speakers in total. So it's going to be a bit of a whistle-top tour of the event and the conclusions, but really looking forward to it and looking forward to hearing what you and others have to say. So without further ado, I will pass over to you, and I'll bring the other guys up, and we can start with hearing some of the conclusions that all of you had. So it's over to you.
Great. Thank you very much, Dan. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Richard Marsden. I'm Managing Director at Knowledge Partner for a series of global spectrum conferences with alongside Ether and Forum Vision. And so as such, we are privileged to have a role in helping to try and develop the agenda for this and the other conferences. And I'm really excited that Forum Europe have been able to do such a great job in carrying on the agenda in these challenging times. And I'm really good to see this format working. Now, we have a very short fire session now. We have a number of representatives of some of the sessions that took place today. And we're going to work through each of those. I myself was in which was an excellent event and led to some really interesting discussion. Up now.
Okay.
Andreas, hi. Yeah, we seem to have a few issues there with Richard's microphone. So I think, Jordan, if you could try and have a chat with Richard and get that sorted. We'll try again with Richard in a second, and hopefully we can get that sorted. But maybe I can kick off by asking each of you initially if you had any very brief kind of conclusions from the sessions that you've been involved in, sessions you've watched during the event, and just any key takeaways that you have from the event so far. So maybe we can kick off with that, and in the meantime, we'll try and get Richard's sound sorted and bring him back up. But Andreas, maybe we could start with yourself and ask any key takeaways that you had from the event.
Sure, Dan, and hello, everybody. And I'm happy to give you a little sort of summary from what I've seen. And I, first of all, would like to congratulate also the Forum Europe team, because, of course, we were in a totally new format this time, first time for this conference. And I think, of course, the disadvantage was that we couldn't see each other and meet each other network physically. On the other hand, I think the advantage was really that we had a participation coming from all over the world and high-profile speakers, and we really benefited from that in the conference. So that, I think, was a positive thing. Also, of course, we've had the main stage, the showcases, the Have Your Say in the chat. I think all that was great. One small feedback I give to the platform programmers is to also have some sort of button for the applause. I think there was a lot of possibility to give applause virtually, of course, which we couldn't do, but certainly it was worth it. On the substance, just 2 points I'd like to make, really. One of the things is the fact that with the COVID crisis, we have this new normal, more of us going digital, more of us using wireless communications. So it's an acceleration of the needs for wireless communications. And I think that is really something that also needs to make sure that we keep that in mind in making use more efficiently. And that's why I think it's so important that this whole idea of sharing is brought into the picture much more in the future. We need ways to innovate in terms of sharing. We need still to have a coherent frame and to avoid that we get fragmentation in this area, because I think that we need sharing solutions that have also economies of scale. So that would be my first takeaway from one of the early sessions that I was participating in. And secondly, on the UHF band, which we've heard in the session that I chaired in terms of the global preparations for WRC, that was one of the main issues, but also just today, the UHF session. I think here there's also quite some interesting work to do between now and 2030. And it's a long time, but on the other hand, I find it quite intriguing, this idea of having sort of using the UHF band as a whole to think about a sort of a reformatting and whether that is possible. And it's a huge challenge, I think, for administrations, for the industry, not only at the European level, it's at the worldwide level, but maybe it's worth thinking about in order to get the most efficient use out of this band, also in light of the new technologies which need broadbands and so on. So this is really something longer term, but we have some time until 2030. Maybe we should think about how we can organize that, and that's a challenge for all of us that I think would be quite interesting to tackle. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm back and I'm hopefully here to stay. All right, so sorry, has Jean-Pierre, have you had a chance yet to speak about WRC? So I think if you could come up next and talk to us about the WRC 23 session that's coming up and your thoughts on that.
Okay, thank you very much, Richard. And once again, hello to everyone. And I think I'd like to highlight three takeaways from this great conference, and I think it was extremely informative. As usual, there's some parts which are more of the same, and there are things which are new, which is also very interesting. So first takeaway, I think despite 14 gigahertz available for IMT, there still is some interest for the 0.2 gigahertz in the UHF band, which remained for peripheral broadcasting and PMSE. So that would be more of the same, I would say, somehow. And that reminds me of the saying, for a man who has a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. So we've been trying to hammer nails for years now, and I think we've done a lot on that. And I think now it's time for IMT to find other solutions to find their problems in finding a new spectrum, and I think there's already a lot. However, we heard, and that will be the second takeaway, we heard very new things also, which are very interesting. First one, it seems that MNOs have no longer so much money to pay for the spectrum. So the so-called golden frequencies may turn out to be less golden than they've been before. Also, we heard that regulators are now also looking at the most efficient ways to ensure media distribution. That is not only, just broadcast spectrum, but also to ensure media distribution and public service. So this is, I think, very interesting. And we've heard finally more on the technical side, the fact that may perhaps be possible to have more flexibility and sharing between the different situations of countries if we were considering standalone downlink only systems, for instance, and find ways to somehow coexist instead of fighting each other. So I think that's very interesting work ahead for us. And that will be our third takeaway. I would come back to the first session, the introduction, at least by Thierry Breton. He said, well, let's not forget also to put forward the European interest in all the transformations we have. There are some strategic industries, and one of them is 5G. But I'd like to recall that the content and cultural industry is also a strategic industry for Europe. It provides a lot of jobs. It provides also a lot of GDP. So for this industry, the 224 megahertz which remain in the UHF band are absolutely vital, both for content production, content distribution, content financing, and also content regulation. All of this is linked, and it's very important that in the solutions which are found further on, this industry is fostered and not, I would say, armed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jean-Pierre. Okay. Next up, we have Joanne Lemay, who's co-president of LYA. And Joanne, you were in the 6 gigahertz session, I think, looking at licensed and unlicensed spectrum and the trade-offs between them. We'd be very interested in your perspectives on that, and also any other sessions you may have been involved in at the conference.
Yes, thank you, Richard. Yes, I think there was quite a lot of debate in the session on 6 gigahertz. I would say there's the $1 trillion question. In region 1, should you have 500 megahertz planned for unlicensed versus the full 1.2 gigahertz that could be planned eventually, as the US just did, and of unlicensed spectrum with 160, 320 megahertz channels. So I think that's not a debate that's over by any stretch of the imagination in the EU, but I think there's a lot of dollars at stake, but maybe dollars for different people. Obviously, if you do unlicensed and you don't do 700 megahertz of IMT in Europe, you won't get that money from the operators. On the other hand, 1.2 gigahertz, when you think about all the innovation that could come from this from different parties, could also generate a lot of wealth for EU. And that's certainly, as we know, the side on which the FCC landed in their decision when they decided to award a full 1.2 gigahertz to unlicensed. I know that they had a unanimous decision, so Democrats, Republicans, they all agreed on that. They sometimes do agree, so they all agreed on that. It was all a unanimous decision on the fact that they wanted unlicensed, even though some carriers in the US did argue in favor of reserving some of that, spectrum for IMT. I know just talking about this also brings me to talk about the spectrum sharing, which I think was a session just before mine on last Wednesday. And I just wanted to leave you with a thought that over the next few months, and I guess next month, will be the CBRS auction, the 3.5 gigahertz CBRS auction in the US. And I think they have, I believe, about 348 applicants for that auction, which is done with on a county level basis. So it's a big auction, but it will give us, I think, a very good insight into the real value that mobile carriers put on shared spectrum. And because they'll have to pay to buy that spectrum. So, do they want to, they still hedge their bets if we want and buy CBRS spectrum and in advance of having more C-band or mid-band spectrum available. And I think that's going to be quite interesting to see, if they are truly interested in putting money down for shared spectrum, which could be a path of interest for other regulators going forward. So maybe those are the thoughts that I want to leave you with. And I certainly want to congratulate the organizers. I think it was a great conference. It's not easy for everyone to do a conference online, but I think it was well done. And I don't have a drink because it is, for me, like for Richard, I think before lunchtime, but I just have my glass of water. So congrats to all.
All right. Thanks, Joanne. I have a glass of sparkling water here myself. Okay, we'd like to turn next to Philip Marnock, who's Group Director of Spectrum at Ofcom. Philip, I guess things like shared spectrum and 6 gigahertz are very much on your agenda right now, but I know at the conference you were discussing millimeter wave spectrum.
Yes, they're very much on our agenda, and we're quite good fans of trying to get people to be able to use spectrum and share it. I think I'd like also to thank Dan and the team, all the feedback I've had from everybody on the conference, as it's been very good. People have been able to engage, people have been able to discuss, and people have been able to listen. A few microphone problems here and there, and the odd few problems with people's screens going a bit odd, but that's life in the virtual world. Maybe we'll all have avatars in the future, safe coming. But for us, we were talking about millimetric wave, and it's quite interesting. Across Europe, people are actually saying, what is the demand for millimetric wave? How can it be used? So the event started with a speech by Verizon, telling us about how they were using it, and actually mobile phones using the spectrum. So the thing that we're sort of looking at and still talking about, even though we set it as a pioneer band, in the US, they're getting there. So that, of course, means that some people in Europe say, but we're late. And it's very odd, isn't it? Every time someone else does something, even though we're doing the same thing differently, we're late. And is that to put pressure on us, or is that to try something else? But I think the interesting thing is, and I think it was the UHF, the discussion we took place was, how can we use it? We had people from the satellite industry saying they also want to use the IMT band for actually providing satellite services across 3.9, 40, and please protect 28 again. The thing for us in Europe is the challenge is, how do we use spectrum for IMT? How do we enable people to use it? But also, for these really high frequency bands, how do we make sure that actually we're not just saying it's for this application, must be used nationwide, but how do we mean that it can be used in different places for different things while still delivering all the benefit to all the consumers and to society? And I think also when we talk about UHF, which I think is an interesting one, again, as we go forward, TV and content is really important. People still use it. People still want it. IMT is needed in some places. How do you get the balance? How do you enable people to use it without necessarily always throwing somebody out to enable someone else to use it? So for us, I think in the UHF, in the sort of millimetric bands as we go forward, how do we change our thoughts about making sure spectrum is available in Europe, spectrum is available for what it's needed for, but actually we're not closing down other applications that also need it? So for me, an interesting set of challenges as we move forward. But again, like all of these conferences, a good way of expressing views, changing views, and seeing different perspectives, and therefore hopefully we can move to the right conclusion on everything. But a great conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Now we're going to turn to Tim Miller, who's a partner and CEO of Plum Consulting. Tim, I think your colleague Tony was involved in a very lively session on whether or not spectrum should be reserved for verticals, or if not, how spectrum should be provided to verticals. So we'd love to get your perspective on that, and indeed any of other of the issues raised by the panel. You might still be on mute, Tim.
So I was. Your mic is muted across the front of the screen, might have given me a clue. Yes, I'm speaking here on behalf of Tony. Tony unfortunately can't be with us today because his daughter gave birth yesterday and he is attending to the new grandchild. So congratulations to him. So Tony was talking about spectrum for verticals. And it was a very lively session. Interestingly, a couple of people just now have been talking about how it's been quite a kind of friendly atmosphere and so on, but actually normally straight after WRC you find that there's a lot more kind of collaboration and talk between each other about how you can build up to the next one. But this conference, there's been quite a lot of conflict, I found, especially as during the spectrum for verticals. There was a lot of conflict between operators and regulators. Operators basically saying that they are able to offer the verticals anything they need, and regulators saying that actually they want to have it a bit separate. In the case of Germany, obviously they want to award spectrum completely separately to verticals. In other places, they are looking to put some obligations on operators to try and make sure that they are going to be able to run their services as they want them to. So there's quite a lot of conflict there, and some of the questions that came up from that were, how do you define what a spectrum operator is, and how do you make sure that the people who are controlling the spectrum actually have the ability to do so? Because if you're going down Germany's path and allocating spectrum to small operators or small companies who want to use it for different ways, how do you know that they're going to be actually able to use the spectrum efficiently? There's another question about the use of licensed and unlicensed spectrum. How much is needed of both, and where does the line sit between these two? And that, going on to the UHF band as well, in rural areas, if you have a need for private networks in rural areas, is there a possibility of running those either over mobile networks or over a private network using UHF spectrum? I mean, UHF, again, another conflict that came up today several times about the need for UHF for TV and for PMSE and for mobile. UHF has been parked for the last few years, but it's definitely come out swinging again at this conference. I think the other thing to mention was about the session on Friday about hotspots, rural providers, and how rural providers may know their market, but they don't have the economies of scale. And how do we make sure that they are able to make best use of spectrum in those areas? And again, the spectrum that they need is not necessarily going to be very high frequency. Shouldn't use very high frequency, because very high frequency means low frequency stuff nowadays. But high frequency spectrum might not be particularly useful in rural areas, but that's what is generally being given to them. So it's been interesting. I think, as I said, after WRC, immediately preceding that, immediately after that, you tend to find that people start to think about what their positions are for the next session. We seem to have reached a bit of a conflict much quicker than normal. That was my takeaway.
Right, thank you, Tim. I found that really interesting, actually, and I think that linked together what everybody was saying. We have two traditional models of licensing spectrum. Either we license spectrum or we have the unlicensed. But the way technology is evolving, it's making it much easier now to share spectrum. And so that does beg the question, do we need new models, hybrid models that allow licensing and unlicensed, or different types of models to coexist? So I think that's going to be an ongoing debate for different future conferences, and it's certain to generate conflict between, because if you have licensed spectrum already and you like that model, you'll lose. If you have unlicensed, what do you think about a change that allows you to use more? So I think I can foresee more conflict and more debate, but clearly things will have to evolve over time. So thank you to all the panelists. That's the end of the discussion of the sessions we've had. The chairman of the RSPG, who will join us.
Yes, thank you, Richard. Thanks for this opportunity to have the last word at this very interesting Spectrum event. Of course, we had a lot of interesting sessions. Thanks for the wrap-up as well, where we got a lot of the content. And me as a chair, I'm interested, of course, in how to allocate spectrum in the future, and to pick up a word from Philip, to make it available in time where we need it and in the amount we need it. And therefore, it's very interesting to pick up the debate we had here in the Spectrum conference at a lot of meetings. And I would assume, of course, I would prefer a physical meeting, that more RSPG members than ever had been present at the Spectrum conference due to this virtual technology. And I would like to point out, two issues where we are focused on under my chairmanship and the rest of this year and next year. One thing that was already discussed at the first day of this conference is the RSPP, where we would like to have a look at the the future work and how to make spectrum available. Is there any change need in spectrum management, and what is key to the strategic planning and harmonization of spectrum in order to make it available in time where we need it. We are looking until 2030, and what are the measures until 2030? I think there are, of course, Jonas mentioned 5 pillars. I think there are 3 most important issues we need to look at. One is spectrum sharing, discussed several times already, or as well in the wrap-up session. We need to have a look how to make spectrum available for an increasing demand. We need to meet these increasing demands and need to have a look where spectrum sharing can be the new normal, and where do we need to overcome current technology and possibilities of sharing, whether there is a possibility to make spectrum available to more users and to meet more demand. The second issue we will have a look at the RSPP is, do we need additional spectrum? We were asked by the Commission to have a look how we can make available at least 12 gigahertz below 100 gigahertz until in the next years. We will have a look at this in order to make to give enough room for innovative wireless services. And the last one, of course, is what can we learn from the current COVID-19 crisis? Are there any lessons learned, any takeaways which we can take into account for the future? And there we got a lot of interesting input from this conference. And I hope that we will meet physically next year, and we will have a debate not only in the conferences, in the workshops, but as well in the pauses, where sometimes the more interesting and the most interesting debates are running. So thank you for the input. Thank you, Dan, and your team for organizing this conference, and I hope that we will see in 2021. And then, of course, with some more input from the RSPG with regard to the output of the current work program. Thanks, and have a good time.
Frank, thank you so much for that, and thank you also to Richard and to all of our speakers and participants who have given their thoughts on their conclusions and their summaries from the conference. So some really good points made there, and I think it has summed up the discussions that we've had really well, as well as probably starting to raise a few issues already for next year's conference, which is never a bad thing. So thank you all so much for that. Now, in a minute, we want to hear from all of you on your thoughts and on whether you agree or disagree on what has been said there, and also what your key takeaways from the conference and from all the sessions are. But before we do that, we do have one important thing to do, and that's to announce the winner of our iPad. So as you may well know, we've been running a competition throughout the conference for one attendee to win a new iPad, and everyone who has visited all of the different exhibition stands and also used the networking area of the platform has been entered into that draw. And just before the start of the session, my colleagues drew the winner, and I'm now delighted to announce the name of the person who's winning that iPad. It's Tarcísio Backhouse from Anatel, the regulator in Brazil. So Tarcísio, huge congratulations to you for that. And I think actually having a winner from Brazil attending what is a European conference shows the way in which a virtual platform really does open up discussions to a global audience. So I think we've had more people than ever joining from outside Europe, and I'm delighted that that's the case. And again, congratulations, Tarcísio, for that. And we'll be getting in touch with you shortly to work out how we can get that iPad to Brazil and get that iPad to you. So congratulations for that. And finally, before we move to the live music and conclusions from all of you, if you don't mind bearing me for just a couple more seconds, I wanted to just end with a few final event thank yous. So first of all, I wanted to again thank Jean-Pierre and BNE for hosting this reception. Really is appreciated. As Jean-Pierre mentioned, it's been 8 years now that BNE have hosted the post-event reception, and we really do appreciate you still continuing to do that in this new virtual format. Thank you also once again to all of our sponsors and partners for the support of the event. As I've mentioned before, we really do appreciate all of your support, and it is that support that makes this event possible. Without that, it would not be possible to hold this event. So thank you all so much for that. A huge thank you to all of our speakers, panelists, and moderators across the 8 sessions we've had for the event. We've had some fascinating discussions, and thankfully, just as importantly, very few technical issues, as Philip mentioned earlier. So we really appreciate all of your involvement and your time, both at the event itself and also in the build-up through the various technical rehearsals and other bits and pieces that we've been asking you to do to prepare for the session. So thank you all so much for your time and for your participation. A big thank you as well to all of you out there who've participated at the event, both via the event platform itself and also those of you who've been watching and are still watching live on Twitter. We've had well over 1,000 of you in total participate across the various sessions, which is truly amazing. So thank you all so much for getting involved, and particularly to those of you who've actively participated in the discussions via the chat room and also the various Have Your Say sessions that we've had each day. Your contribution has been a big part of the event and the success of the event, and really has given us a truly interactive discussion, interactive debates during each session. So thank you very much indeed. And finally, I wanted to say a massive personal thank you to my fantastic colleagues in the Spectrum team here at Forum Europe. So to Jordan, Lula, James, and to Kate. The amount of work and stress involved in organising a virtual event like this is so much more than a face-to-face conference. And the work that the team has done to put everything together really has been amazing. So guys, thank you all so much. And I couldn't have asked for a better team to work together with on this. So thank you all so much. And you'll be pleased to hear that you can now have at least a couple of hours rest before we move on in earnest to look towards our next Spectrum Management Conference, which is going to be our Asia Pacific event, which is also going to be happening entirely online via this same platform. And that's going to be taking place from the 3rd to the 6th of August. So we'll be in touch with all of you, I'm sure, with more information on that shortly and providing details of that and our other regional spectrum management conferences that will be taking place before the end of this year. So we will be in touch with all of those. Our whole schedule of events, I think, this year is going to be taking place virtually, and we'll keep you all updated with all the information on that. So now it's over to you. So as I said, we're really keen to now hear from you on your key takeaways and your key conclusions from the conference, and we invite you to add these in the chat box to the right of your screens. And whilst we're doing that, we're delighted to have some musical entertainment for you. So I would like to welcome now Ali and Oscar, who we have with us to play some tunes to close the event. So hi guys, welcome, and it's great to have you here. So that's just about it. Thank you once again to everyone for all of your participation over the past week. We really do appreciate everyone getting involved and joining us for all the various sessions. So please now do stay. Let us know what your takeaways are from the event in the chat room, and most importantly, pour a drink and listen to the music. So thanks again, everyone. Ali, Oscar, over to you.
Thanks, Dan. Hi, everyone out there. We're going to play a few songs. This is called Please Stay. I'm not the kind of girl who likes to wait a turn. I'm so impatient, yeah, I leave no stone unturned. And I'm trying to work out why these feelings run my mind. I know you always try to see my point of view. I never mean to take my bad day out on you. And I'm sorry about the way I acted yesterday. Now that I push you away, please stay. please stay, please stay. I am aware that lately I've been lazy, waiting around for you to come and rescue me. Yeah, this way that I can be, well, it makes me crazy. And although I push you away, please stay, please stay. And I know I've broken the frame. Please stay, please stay, please stay. Another car, another plane, when you're so far away, and you're on the road, and I'm all alone, and it's so hard to say. Forget about the things I said when I was going out of my head. Won't you forget about the things I said when I was going out of my head? Push you away, please stay, please stay. And I know I've broken the frame. Please stay, please stay. Didn't mean half of your day. Please stay, please stay. And I know I'll push you away. Please stay, 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 please stay. Cool. This next song is called Cigarette.
1, 2, 2. Oh, hang on. 2. Go 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
You always say how much you love my big brown eyes, playing with my long hair like you found your prize. I'm so tired of standing next to you with nobody caring what I do. If I shave my head, would you tell your friends you don't really care, really care? Don't ask for a cigarette, cigarette. Don't ask for a cigarette, cigarette. Don't ask for a cigarette. You always say how much you love my big brown eyes, playing with my long hair like you found your prize. I'm so tired of standing next to you with nobody caring what I do. If I shave my head, would you tell your friends you don't really care, really care? Don't ask for a cigarette, cigarette. Don't ask for a cigarette, cigarette. Don't ask for I can't explain to you the energy it takes to have to face these feelings every day. You can't ignore me, but I'm not the only girl who wakes up trying not to feel this way. If I shake my head, would you tell your friends you don't really care, really care? Don't ask for a cigarette, cigarette. Don't ask for a cigarette, cigarette. Don't ask for a cigarette. Cool. This next song is called Backseat. Well, I saw you playing bands, and I know some of your friends, and you don't really smoke weed, and your hair on is real neat, and I think that you should be my boyfriend. And I know you play guitar, and your band's going real far, and you don't really know me, but wanna play on my EP, 'cause I think that you should be my boyfriend. Yeah, I think that you should be my boyfriend. No, you never really met, but if you did, then I think that we'd be perfect. And I know you play guitar, and your band's going real far, and you don't really know me, but wanna play on my EP, 'cause I think that you should be my boyfriend. Yeah, I think that you should be my boyfriend. No, you've never really met, but if we did, then I think that we'd be perfect. We don't have to make it hard, but if you wanted, I could show you in the back of my car. I know that you play in bands, 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 play in my band, play in my band. No, you never really met, but if you did, then I think that we'd be perfect. We don't have to make it hard, but if you wanted, I could show you in the back of my car, in the back of my car, in the back seat of my car. All right. This next song is called Big Ones. Hey, hey, he said just be yourself. Hey, hey, leave your hair like it is. Don't you know, baby, that I know what I'm talking about? He said that it's all good, just leave it to me. Protect yourself from the big ones. Protect yourself from the little ones too. Don't get lost in the sauce, don't let them bring you down. You're good as you. Hey, hey, yeah, we love what you do. Hey, hey, we think you're great how you are. But have you ever considered toning it down? They say it's all good, just leave it to us. Protect yourself from the big ones. Protect yourself from the little ones too. Don't get lost in the sauce, don't let them bring you down. You're good as you. When you wake up and you're someone else, didn't even know you lost yourself. When you wake up and you're someone else, didn't even know you lost yourself. Hey, protect yourself from the big ones. Protect yourself from the little ones too. Don't get lost in the sauce, don't let them bring you down. You're good as you. Hey, hey, 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 hey. Thank you so much. My name's Ali. This is Oscar, and we've got one more song for you. This song is called Girly Bits. Give us a smile, baby, act like a real lady. Call off those battle lines, flash us your pennies. What's a woman, what's a woman, what's a woman, woman made of? Something glorious, something glorious, something glorious, something glorious. Give us a smile, princess, it's better for business. None of this angriness, show us your girly bits. What's a woman, what's a woman, what's a woman meant to look like? What's a woman, what's a woman, what's a woman, she started to fight. No, you don't understand what it's like to be a man. You don't understand what it's like to be a man. You don't understand what it's like to be a man. Give us a smile, baby, you should be happy. Wind back the dial, lady, it takes a while, baby. What's a woman, what's a woman, what's a woman that you look like? What's a woman, what's a woman, what's a woman if she starts a fight? No, you don't understand what it's like to be a man. You don't understand what it's like to be a man. You don't understand what it's like to be a man. You don't understand what it's like to be a man. You don't understand what it's like to be a man. You don't understand what it's like to be a man. You don't understand what it's like to be a man. What's a woman, what's a woman, what's a woman that you love? What's a woman, what's a woman, what's a woman that you love? What's a woman, what's a woman, what's a woman that you love? What's a woman, what's a woman, what's a woman that you love? Thank you.